July 31st, 1992. A day that shook the aviation world to its core. Thai Airways Flight 311, en route from Bangkok to Kathmandu, disappeared into the mountains, taking the lives of all 113 people on board. It was supposed to be a routine flight, but it turned into a nightmare in an instant. What happened? Was it simply a tragic accident, or were there deeper issues at play? In this video, we'll break down the tragic story of Thai Airways Flight 311, explore the key factors behind the crash, and ask some important questions about how it could have been prevented. On the morning of July 31st, 1992, Thai Airways Flight 311 took off from Don Mueang International Airport in Bangkok, Thailand. The Airbus A310-304, with the registration number HS-TID, was scheduled for a routine flight to Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu, Nepal. The aircraft carried 113 people on board, consisting of 99 passengers and 14 crew members. It was an ordinary flight, one that was set to follow a well-established route, but things would soon take a tragic turn. As the plane made its way toward Kathmandu, it encountered the challenging airspace surrounding the airport, known for its difficult terrain and weather conditions. By 7 a.m. UTC, 12:45 p.m. local time in Nepal, the plane was nearing its destination. At this stage of the flight, the crew began their descent toward Kathmandu, which is surrounded by the towering peaks of the Himalayan mountains. This approach is notorious for its complexity and danger, especially during poor weather conditions. The aircraft was approximately 37 kilometers from the airport when it encountered deteriorating weather conditions, significantly reducing visibility. As the flight approached Kathmandu, the crew faced challenges navigating through a mountainous landscape, which complicated their ability to ascertain their position relative to the terrain. This situation heightened their concerns about the safety of the flight, particularly as they struggled to maintain clarity in their decision-making process amidst the unfolding circumstances. As the aircraft continued its descent, the ground proximity warning system activated, alerting the crew that they were flying too low and nearing a hazardous area.
Level change.
A ground proximity warning suddenly begins to blare.
Pull up, airspeed low.
The GPWS is designed to prevent controlled flight into terrain by continuously monitoring the aircraft's altitude and position relative to the ground. It utilizes radar altimeters and terrain databases to issue warnings when the aircraft's trajectory poses a risk of collision with obstacles or terrain below. However, during this critical moment, technical issues compounded the crew's confusion, making it difficult for them to respond effectively to the warnings. The combination of poor visibility, challenging terrain, and malfunctioning systems created a precarious situation for the flight crew. The GPWS is intended to enhance situational awareness and provide timely alerts to prevent accidents. However, in this instance, the crew's ability to act on these alerts was compromised. This incident underscores the importance of effective training and reliable systems in aviation safety, particularly in complex environments where decision-making can be severely impacted by external factors. Tragically, despite the alarming warning from the GPWS, the aircraft collided with a cliff in Langtang National Park.
Oh my God!
At an altitude of 11,500 feet. The crash occurred just moments after the warning, and all 113 people aboard perished in the incident. The loss was devastating, and questions about what went wrong began to surface immediately after the crash. In the hours leading up to the crash, several events contributed to the disaster. The flight initially encountered a technical issue involving the aircraft's flap system, which led the crew to request a diversion to Calcutta as a precaution. This decision was made to ensure the safety of the passengers and crew, as the flap system is critical for controlling the aircraft's speed and descent. However, after further assessment, the crew decided to continue toward Kathmandu instead of diverting, as the problem with the aircraft had been resolved. This decision would ultimately have fatal consequences. Kathmandu's airport is situated in a challenging location, surrounded by tall mountains, and the approach to the airport is notoriously difficult. The lack of a radar system at Nepalese Air Traffic Control ATC further complicated the situation. ATC could not track the aircraft's exact position in real time, relying instead on position reports from the pilots. This lack of radar support was a significant issue, as it meant that ATC had no way of knowing the aircraft's precise location relative to the mountains or the airport. The communication between the cockpit and ATC was also problematic. The captain repeatedly asked for weather updates and information about visibility, but the responses from ATC were vague and unhelpful. ATC struggled to provide precise and actionable data, and this lack of clarity added to the stress and confusion in the cockpit. The captain and the rest of the crew were flying blind, without the essential information they needed to safely navigate the mountainous terrain. During the final stages of the flight, the crew was increasingly uncertain about the aircraft's exact position. They did not have a clear understanding of where they were relative to the mountains, and this uncertainty contributed to the misjudgment that would ultimately lead to the crash. The lack of proper communication and the absence of radar guidance made an already difficult approach even more dangerous. As Flight 311 continued its approach into Kathmandu, the situation in the cockpit became increasingly tense. The aircraft was descending through the mountainous terrain, with the crew attempting to navigate the treacherous airspace. At this point, the ground proximity warning system activated, sounding a loud and urgent alert to the crew. The system was designed to warn pilots when they are flying too close to the ground or an obstacle, especially in areas with complex terrain. The warning came just moments before the crash, indicating that the aircraft was in immediate danger of colliding with the terrain. However, the captain, under considerable pressure and focused on the issues with air traffic control, dismissed the GPWS alert. He mistakenly believed that the warning was a false alarm, and the decision was made to continue the descent without taking evasive action. This misjudgment would prove to be fatal. Compounding the problem, the captain had a high workload due to the ongoing technical issues with the aircraft and the poor communication with ATC. The stress of managing multiple factors likely impaired his ability to assess the situation correctly. Despite the first officer's efforts to warn the captain about the immediate danger, the captain remained convinced that the GPWS alert was inaccurate. This miscommunication between the crew members further contributed to the tragic outcome. The aircraft was descending steadily when it suddenly collided with a steep cliff in Langtang National Park. The crash occurred at an altitude of 11,500 feet, where the terrain becomes particularly challenging for pilots. The force of the impact was devastating, leading to the tragic loss of all lives aboard. The severe terrain and weather conditions made navigation difficult, and the crash underscored the importance of maintaining situational awareness at all times. Effective communication between the crew members is essential to ensure everyone is aligned on the flight's progress. Adherence to safety protocols is crucial, especially when flying through rugged landscapes. Proper training and preparation are needed to handle such difficult environments. The accident serves as a painful reminder of the risks associated with flying in challenging terrain. It also highlights the importance of constant vigilance and the need for quick decision-making during emergencies. Moving forward, improving safety measures in such areas becomes even more critical. The investigation into the crash of Flight 311 revealed several critical factors that played a role in the disaster. Let's take a closer look at them. At the heart of the crash were mistakes made by the pilots. The captain was under immense stress and frustration. First, there were the technical problems with the aircraft, including the flap system, which caused him to briefly consider diverting to Calcutta. Then, the lack of clear communication from ATC made matters worse. The captain's frustration and high workload led him to lose situational awareness. He failed to properly assess his surroundings, and, in the critical moments before the crash, dismissed the warnings from the GPWS. This was a fatal mistake. Do you think pilot error could have been prevented with better training or preparation? The communication between the pilots and ATC was another key factor. At the time of the crash, the Nepalese air traffic control system lacked radar, which made it harder for them to track the plane's location. so all the controllers could rely on were the pilot's position reports. The situation grew increasingly confusing when the captain of the Thai Airways flight reported being 5 nautical miles away from Kathmandu. However, the air traffic controller misunderstood and thought the plane was 25 nautical miles away. This simple miscommunication led to a critical misunderstanding of the aircraft's location. As a result, the flight was much closer to the mountains than the crew and air traffic controllers had realized. This miscalculation set the stage for the terrifying mountain turbulence that would follow, putting the flight in immediate danger. What do you think? Could better communication have saved the flight? Before the crash, the aircraft faced some technical issues, mainly with the flap system, which initially caused the crew to consider diverting the plane. Although the issue was resolved, the stress of the situation affected the captain's decision-making. Another critical factor was the lack of proper training. Thai Airways had not provided adequate simulator training for approaches into Kathmandu, a notoriously difficult airport surrounded by mountains. The pilots were not fully prepared to handle the dangers posed by the terrain. Would more realistic training have helped the crew make better decisions during the flight? Nepal's air traffic control ATC system was severely limited on the day of Thai Airways Flight 311's crash. One of the most critical issues was the absence of radar at the control tower. Radar plays a crucial role in modern aviation by providing real-time tracking of aircraft, which helps air traffic controllers manage traffic and provide accurate guidance to pilots, especially when navigating through difficult terrain, like the mountains surrounding Kathmandu. Without radar, ATC had to rely on pilots' position reports, which are less accurate and can lead to misunderstandings, especially when conditions are as challenging as they were during this flight. ATC struggled to track Flight 311's precise position, leaving the crew without clear guidance as they approached the mountainous terrain near Kathmandu. The crew's requests for weather and visibility information went largely unanswered, adding to the confusion. This left them flying blind, without accurate data on their altitude or location. One of the key issues that arose due to the lack of radar was a critical misinterpretation of the aircraft's position. The captain of the flight reported being 5 nautical miles from the airport, but the ATC controller mistakenly thought he said 25 nautical miles. This error in distance reporting led the controller to believe that the aircraft was much farther away from the mountains than it actually was, which significantly delayed the recognition of the imminent danger. In addition to the poor communication, this misinterpretation meant that both ATC and the flight crew were unaware of how close the aircraft was to the mountainous terrain until it was too late. This lack of real-time position data played a major role in the tragic collision with the cliff. Over the years, aviation professionals have extensively analyzed the crash of Thai Airways Flight 311, offering valuable insights into the factors that led to the tragedy. Gordon Kaur, a senior Airbus test pilot, highlighted the communication failures between the cockpit and air traffic control. Kaur noted how the captain's misunderstanding of the flight management system, FMS, played a role, stating, "The captain was saying, 'Give me the Romeo point,' and assuming the co-pilot wasn't using the flight management system correctly. But in fact, it was working perfectly."
It's Romeo 27, isn't it?
Romeo.
Also, the captain seemed to be getting frustrated with the co-pilot's efforts to put things in the navigation system.
This observation underscores the dangers of miscommunication and how critical technological systems can be misinterpreted in high-pressure situations. David McNair, a Transportation Safety Board investigator, pointed out the confusion during the final approach, explaining how both the pilots and air traffic controllers were operating under different mental models of the situation. He remarked, "There was mutual misunderstanding becoming the third party in the conversation." This reflects the importance of clear, shared understanding and communication between all parties involved in aviation, especially during complex and high-risk phases of flight. The inexperience of Nepalese air traffic controllers also played a significant role in the crash. An investigation revealed that a controller misinterpreted the aircraft's distance reports, mistaking 5 nautical miles for 25. This misunderstanding put the aircraft in a dangerous situation, emphasizing how essential accurate information is for safe flight operations. The absence of radar at the time only worsened the situation, highlighting the critical role of modern technology in ensuring safe air travel. Aviation safety experts have since pointed out the importance of proper training for pilots, especially when approaching airports in challenging terrains. Training for complex approaches in challenging environments is essential for ensuring pilot preparedness, said one expert. This sentiment is central to the broader understanding that training deficiencies, poor communication, and inadequate situational awareness all contributed to the tragic crash of Flight 311, leaving a legacy of lessons to be learned for future aviation safety. The public reaction included calls for improved safety measures in aviation, especially concerning flights operating in difficult environments like the Himalayas. Many advocated for better training for pilots and enhanced ATC capabilities to ensure that such an accident would not be repeated. Overall, Thai Airways Flight 311 remains a poignant reminder of the complexities and risks associated with aviation, particularly in challenging geographic areas. The collective reactions from families, experts, authorities, and the public reflect a shared commitment to learning from this tragedy to enhance future flight safety. The crash of Flight 311 led to widespread changes in aviation safety and training. Investigators pointed out that better communication protocols and more comprehensive training could have prevented the tragedy. For one, the crash led to changes in how pilots are trained for mountainous approaches. Simulators were upgraded, and crews were given better preparation for handling dangerous terrains. In addition, improvements were made to air traffic control systems in Nepal. The tragic crash served as a wake-up call for the need to modernize aviation safety infrastructure, especially in challenging environments like Kathmandu. The crash of Thai Airways Flight 311 was a devastating tragedy, but it also highlighted critical lessons for the aviation industry. Pilot errors, poor communication, technical problems, and insufficient training all contributed to the crash. In the aftermath, the aviation industry took steps to improve safety and prevent similar tragedies. But the question remains: how much more could have been done to avoid such a disaster? Could better communication, more modern equipment, and better training have saved those 113 lives? In the end, the crash of Thai Airways Flight 311 serves as a stark reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in aviation. The lessons learned from this tragedy have made air travel safer today. But we can't forget the lives lost in the process. What do you think? What are your thoughts on how aviation safety has changed since this tragic event? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.